Well, well, well. I mean, did everybody hear that bio? A couple great schools in there. A 3-letter acronym, starts with an M, ends with an A. People tend to find it pretty impressive. Some organizations you may have actually heard of in there. So doesn't it feel great to have a bio and a resume? Things that signal to the world and to yourself that you actually have half a clue what you're talking about? I mean, it feels good. It feels good to have something that says, I know I do this well. I know I have expertise in this. I know that my past experience can really help me here today. It feels great. And so, of course, the companies and the organizations that we build and work in, it feels good there. It's awesome to work in a place that knows what it's doing, that has a great ranking, a good reputation, a place that others turn to for advice and support. But man, oh man, is this world we live in changing fast. For almost every industry, we're in the middle of a pretty big shift. You're lucky if it's just to the left or to the right a little bit, but for many of us, it's a complete 180. 5 years ago, mom and pop stores weren't falling prey to Amazon nearly as much as they are today, as well as big box retailers. The patient wasn't often described as the center of the healthcare universe. It was rare that a student was learning online from a really accredited university. Smartphones were still relatively novel. I mean, the words big data, robots, wearables, these were, not part of our daily lexicon. But you name it, almost every industry, from manufacturing, education, social services, healthcare, and everything in between, we're finding ourselves moving into really new territory, really unknown territory. And so in these new realities, we're finding ourselves having to replace the very fun words, I know, with kind of the scary words, I don't know. And for individuals, it's the same thing. For many of us, we're having to change jobs more and more. So if you think about the last time you got a new job, were you sure it was the right fit? Did you really know about that role before you leapt into it? Did you find yourself saying, I don't know, at any point in time? So for me, when I left business school, I was really struck by how much I didn't know, by this world that I described, how fast it was changing, how these problems were so dynamic and constantly new, and how in the world I was supposed to lead other people in helping solve them. I mean, I went to Darden, so let's not be wrong, I had answers, that's for sure. But I wasn't quite sure deep down if I didn't feel entirely right. So I was drawn to the field of innovation and design thinking because of the humility and the truthfulness in saying, I don't know. Now think about how hard that is. We usually march forward kind of pretending like we know. So to really have the courage to signal or say, I don't know, to your teammates, to your boss, to your customers, to the marketplace, shareholders, it takes a lot of guts. So it's really fun to help companies move into this unknown and provide some methods and tools that provide some amount of structure and certainty in this. So what is this, I don't know, what's it look and feel like? I've had the great fortune in the last couple years of getting to work alongside an organization called the Good Samaritan Society. And they are the nation's largest provider of long-term care and services. And they're based in South Dakota, right in the middle of the country, and they serve really the middle of the country. And they build and run assisted living homes, and assisted living facilities and nursing homes, and they provide outstanding care inside these homes. And here's the thing, people don't want to move into them anymore, right? They want to age at home with independence. I mean, who wouldn't? So there's a big disconnect between what this company's been doing for 100 years and what their customers now want. And so for them, they're really struggling to figure out this farmer in Wyoming, that lives and runs on his ranch there, he does not want to move into the city and into a nursing home, that's for sure. He wants to age with dignity and independence. And so for individuals, like I mentioned, many of us are changing jobs. So for me, probably like many of you, a couple years out of undergrad, I thought, man, it's time to change careers. I'm going to switch and do something different, move into a new industry. I did not have a clue what that was going to be. I really felt like I was facing a complete unknown, this huge abyss. So in both these situations for myself, when I was faced with the unknown and the Good Samaritan Society, what did we do? Because we're human, we tried to move from I don't know to I know as fast as we possibly could. So just, look, I'm in a new situation, I just pick an answer, and there's this ticking time clock, I'm just going to roll with it. I want to feel like I'm moving forward, this looks great, this path sounds fine, I'm just going to get on it. And we do that because execution feels so good, and that exploration sometimes doesn't. So these systems and organizations that we build and work in, they thrive on that stability and predictability. Give me that answer. Or your project to-do list or your milestones, going through that is what feels like success, maybe rather than your long-term outcome. So in this race to get from I don't know to I know as fast as possible, what are some things that tend to happen in that? And these might sound familiar to you. So first, you shut down any idea that seems risky. Why? Because you're already thinking about how am I going to execute on this? And since you can't fathom it, you just shut it down. So then you move to the second option, which might be, let's pick the status quo. Let's kind of do something that looks a little like we're doing today. Why? Because I know how to do what I'm doing today, and if I just kind of barely inch over, I can probably get that going as well. Or last, we pick the wrong idea and spend a lot of time and money finding that out the hard way. I know I've made all three mistakes for sure. And for the Good Samaritan Society, they actually learned the hard way. They spent a good deal of time and money trying to stand up ideas for this Wyoming farmer that weren't quite working for that farmer or for the organization. And for me, when I was looking for a new job, I picked the safe bet. I decided I was going to be in the Foreign Service. I was going to be a diplomat. And so I was so excited to have something figured out and I could go get it done. Now this is a safe bet in a status quo in that it's a job that's been around a while and it has a pretty well-worn path to it. There's a pretty structured way to get into it. Luckily, and I highly don't recommend luck as a strategy, if it happens to be yours, we can talk offline about how hard it is to execute. But luckily, I was able to figure out ahead of time that though this was an amazing job, it was not a great fit for me. So I had two twists of fate that I got lucky and found this out. One was bad, one was good. I had a bad twist of fate in that I had a medical fluke that kind of threw me off my little path that I had decided to take to get into this role. Then I had a good twist of fate that I got to be a consultant to the Foreign Service in Afghanistan. And it was there that I realized, wow, a very cool job. This just happens to be not a great fit for me for the long term. But I was struck by how much time and money I would have spent going into the Peace Corps, going to grad school, taking the Foreign Service exam, hopefully getting into the Foreign Service, and how hard it would have been to derail myself from this because it felt so good to move forward. So in these situations, for myself, for the Good Samaritan Society, what could we have done differently? How could we have done this better? We could have really abandoned our expertise, abandoned the need to feel like we knew, and start being comfortable saying, I don't know. And then start falling in love with saying, I don't know, but I know how to know. So for the Good Samaritan Society, they're saying, I don't know what new service I'm going to offer this farmer in Wyoming. I don't have a clue, but I know the steps I need to take to figure that out. That's experimentation. It's my favorite design thinking tool. It's one that I try and do as much as I can and try and get better at it. And it's one I'm kind of going to try and lure you into today and give you some steps on how to do it. So here is 6 steps to knowing how to know. Now, if you're a scientist or designer or an entrepreneur, this problem-solving toolkit probably doesn't, it may feel familiar to you. And for many of you, you'll recognize hints of the scientific method in here. But for many of us, we don't work in these fields, so we basically steal their methods. And often we wrap it up and we can call it design thinking. So here is step number 1. Get out there and listen. Get out there and talk to people who have a stake in your answer. Get out of your head, get off your laptop, get out of your boardroom, go out and talk to people, listen to them. Now think about it. Think how lulled we are into thinking that between the internet and our laptop, we basically can like run the world and know everything. Get out there and talk to people. So for the Good Samaritan Society, they went out and talked to that farmer in Wyoming, his family, the nurses that work out there, the insurance providers, the doctor, the whole thing. Talk to folks. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is you come up with 3 ideas. Now, you don't have to be a creative genius at this point. People just told you what was on their minds, what they wanted. All you have to do is think of 3 ways to solve those problems. That's it. So if that farmer in Wyoming doesn't want to move into a nursing home, what does he want? What did he tell you that he wanted? Listen to that. Now you're thinking, great, so not only have to come up with 1 idea, I have to come up with 3. Thanks. So here's why you do that. This is best explained through dating, which is one of the best and oldest examples of experimentation that I can think of. So in this case, I have a dear friend whose theory is when you're initially starting to date, remember this is just an idea, you date multiple people. And why? Because you don't want to fall in love with one person. Okay? You don't want to fall in love with your idea too early. You want to be asking yourself, is he or she, you don't want to be asking yourself, is he or she the one to one person, but rather saying, is one of these people the one? So pick 3 instead of 1. Then you're going to move on to step 3 and run an experiment on each of these ideas. Now you'll see I drew some beakers up here to kind of get you in the mindset of the scientific method. Why? Because you're moving into the unknown. So your idea is not fact yet. It's a hypothesis. It's a really good guess because you listened to people and they told you what they wanted, but it's still a hypothesis. So your job now is to go out and get data to help you understand to confirm or disconfirm your idea. So your lab is really the farmer in Wyoming and out where he lives and works, his environment. So get out there, bring your 3 ideas, and show them to him. So for the Good Samaritan Society, they said, cool, okay, here's 3 different ways we can help you. They each kind of have a little bit different service. They each have a different business model. What do you think? So you get out there and listen. Now this is also important to have 3 instead of 1 because you get better feedback. So when somebody comes to you, like you have a friend who comes to you and has this one idea, and they say, oh, what do you think of that idea? And you find yourself kind of nodding like, that sounds great. That sounds really good. When one person comes to you, you sort of have this underlying social obligation to sort of like it or affirm it. But if somebody comes to you with 3 ideas, they're essentially giving you permission to say, tell me something in here you don't like, right? So you give them 3 ideas so they can say, this is not so much, but actually, I like this. Okay. So give them 3 ideas. Now also at this point, you're probably thinking, what am I doing this for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years? What's happening? You're going to create some structure at this point, and we like to call it finding your midnight. So Cinderella knew what was up at midnight. She had a lot to get done before she turned into a pumpkin. She had some dresses to wear and balls to go to. You have a lot to get done in these experiments, but you want to give yourself this sort of end time frame. So for the Good Samaritan Society, their midnight was 100 days. They gave themselves 100 days. And they gave themselves 4 people and about $20,000 to run these couples of experiments. And then they were like, we're going to stop and see what's up at that point. Great, so find your midnight. Then, this is probably my favorite step, you're going to stop and listen to the data. Okay, so just hold the presses, take in everything you heard, and you'll sort of see, oh, okay, cool, people like this about this idea, they didn't like that idea. If everyone likes your idea, if all your checkboxes, you're probably not doing this step right. You're probably selling your idea more than really exploring it or listening. You're probably not giving that farmer a lot of time to tell what he thinks. This is so important to get good feedback at this point. It's so critical to get out there and say, I'm going to find someone to dislike my Facebook post. We're so adverse to that, to saying, I'm going to go out there and find somebody to tell me I'm wrong. And what you want is someone to tell you that you're wrong now. It's just a sketch. It's just an idea at this point. You haven't spent a lot of time and money. Tell me I'm wrong now. My other alternative is to spend years building and standing up something, and then I learn I'm wrong when no one buys it or no one engages in my program. So there's a lot of talk about failure these days. Design thinking says this is where you fail. You fail in an experiment. That's the whole point of the experiment. So that's step number 4. Now we move into step number 5, modify your idea. So for the Good Samaritan Society, they said, cool, one light bulb's gone, one idea is totally gone, didn't work, no one liked it, great. Let's pick and choose elements of these other ones and combine them to make these 2 new ideas. The last step is a little bit of a choose your own adventure moment. So you had those 2 ideas. You can maybe just take one at that point and say, great, I have to execute. You might have run out of time and money, that's fine. You had 30 days, you did what you could, now you have to go build it. Or you could go around the cycle one more time. So I'll show you kind of all the steps. It's very cyclical. So your other option is to repeat. If you can swing another trip around the circle, each time you do it, you're squeezing the risk out of your new idea. You're helping make more certain the unknown. So for the Good Samaritan Society, this path, these 6 steps, are how they stay innovative, meaning how they build and stand up new services for that Wyoming farmer and for the many other customers that will come their way over the next 100 years that they have as a company. So be proud of that bio and those things that you do well now. But for many of us, in 5 years, what we do today in our companies and as individuals, we probably won't be doing the same things in the same way. So when you come to that point, you can say, you know what? I don't know, but I know how to know. And you can get out there and experiment. Thank you very much.